What's happening, friends? Welcome once again. This is Syracuse Basketball Postgame presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. My name is Brent Axe. Great to have you on board. Remember, we come on live after every Syracuse basketball game, but make sure you subscribe, you follow, whatever your preference is on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts so you can listen and watch on demand when you want, in case you can't be here live after the game. In this case, Syracuse falls pretty hard, a 24-point loss to, now I have to say this right, shout out to Syracuse Sports Insider Lacey, Louisville, right? It's not Louisville in my central New York accent, although I'll probably say that about 14 more times throughout the pod tonight. Louisville. Well, Louisville, however you want to pronounce it, came in, hit three-pointers, shut down JJ Starling, who had 26 points in Syracuse's prior game against Boston College. JJ, just 4 points tonight. Lucas Taylor, shut out. Elijah Morris has been the case going on a few games now, and it's just not contributing anything, unfortunately for him, at this point, even as a starter. Plays just 6 minutes in this game. He shut out. Jair Davis had 10. Eddie Lampkin did have a double-double tonight, 11 and 10. Chris Bell was your leading scorer. Frankly, a couple of those threes that he hit came in serious garbage time. But if Chris Bell's scoring 18 points, you got to count that as maybe something to build on going into the next game. And that's really it. Louisville hit 12 three-pointers. Syracuse only countered with 8. Louisville shuts down JJ, and Syracuse just did not have plan B on offense. So they fall to 8 and 9 on the season, below 500. Once again, they're 2 and 4 in ACC play. And look, there's a few things we're going to go over here, and our Syracuse Sports Insiders are going to chime in a little bit later on here in the show. And being a Syracuse Sports Insider means you get direct text message access to me anytime, including the roller coaster ride of emotions that we see from fans during games. Love getting your feedback. You get breaking news first. You get my analysis, opinions, and all the good stuff. You guys get it first as Syracuse Sports Insiders. It's just $3.99 a month. You could try it free for 2 weeks. What a great New Year's resolution. I know we're a couple weeks into the new year. You can't say Happy New Year anymore. I think this is the Friday. Like, if people are going to bail on their New Year's resolutions, this is when it happens. Well, don't do that. Start a New Year's resolution. It's never too late to become a Syracuse Sports Insider. So we'll see what they have to say in full coming up. But I did want to start with one of our texters tonight, Michael L., who says this. Disheartening loss to a team and a coach that did not exist last year. At home, no less. I'm concerned the team may spiral downwards even more after a loss like this. Now, I'm not sure about that and where they'll spiral, where they'll go from here. They proved tonight that they can't play a good team. They can beat low ACC teams, which are pretty much 50-50 games for Syracuse, like Boston College and Georgia Tech. I mean, a week ago today, Syracuse beats Georgia Tech at a sparsely attended JMA Wireless Dome, then the lowest crowd of the year. They announced the crowd at 19,750 at the Dome tonight, which that's just a joke. I'm sorry. There was barely 11,000 people, if that. They're a little bit of a boost with the students being back in town. The new semester started on Monday, so I think you're factoring in student tickets, but come on. 19,000. There was a there was a T-shirt giveaway at the Dome tonight. Green T-shirts from, I don't want to give people free advertising here, but we all write our gas bill and our electric bill to this company here in central New York. We used to call it Niagara Mohawk. I'll put it to you that way, right? So they had a promotion going on where they blanketed the lower bowl of the Dome with green T-shirts. It was like a green energy thing. And there were probably more T-shirts than people in the building. And I'm only half joking. Like, that's what the attendance was. If you saw some of the things I tweeted out, there was a picture out there. I should probably show it here and pull it up. I did send it to our Syracuse Sports Insiders who saw it. When you got fans sitting in the stands with a bag on their head that says football school on it, that's kind of where we're at here, right? Michael L. hits the absolute nail on the head here. There's something that needs to be stressed about not just this game, but kind of the state of affairs here. This Louisville team, Louisville, did not exist a year ago. The only player that's on the roster now that was on the roster last year is a walk-on. And the walk-ons got on the court, by the way, at the end. That's how much of a kind of a joke this game became, right? Pat Kelsey came in, had to completely, literally restructure a team, build a team from nothing. They're 6-1 in ACC play. They have won 7 straight. They're a top-level team in this league. They're not on the level with Duke yet. They're not even ranked yet, though. If they keep playing at this rate, they're going to be ranked sooner rather than later. I know my friend and colleague Donna DeToda ranked Louisville in her top 25 this week. So just a little shot across the bow here that it can be done in the portal era. And the comparison that a lot of people are making to what Syracuse is becoming under Adrian Autry, I don't know if they're there quite yet, but it's hard to ignore the comparisons when you play Louisville. And you saw what Kenny Payne did to Louisville and how he sunk their battleship down to levels they had never seen before. And they knew they just had to pull the ripcord and get out of that thing. So it's just a little shot across the bow that it can be done. I'm not saying it should be done tomorrow, but a lot of fans certainly notice that a coach can come in and completely wipe the slate clean, and Louisville's a good team. And it's a team that did not exist a year ago. It can be done in the portal era, just something to kind of tuck away. As far as this game goes, and I do have a couple clips from JJ Starling I want to play because he was despondent in the locker room. You never want to be encouraged to see somebody so down, but he really took it personally. How not only Louisville as a team, but in particular one player, Chucky Hepburn, had a great game for Louisville. He's one of the best defenders, leads the league in steals, had 24 points tonight, 6 of 10 from three-point range. As we mentioned, Louisville with 12 three-pointers tonight. Their best three-point shooter, the guy who leads the league in threes, Rain Smith. I mean, it's hard to avoid the rain comparison, let it rain. He hit 3, which is great, but they could not defend Chucky Hepburn. Syracuse couldn't defend the 3 at all, no matter who was taking them. But those were the guys. Edwards hit a couple, but those were the primary guys. Chucky Hepburn not only lit the world on fire from three-point range, he completely and utterly shut down JJ Starling. It was startling to see, given how well JJ's been playing since he's come back from that hand injury. He's averaging about 20 points per game, 26 against BC, 20 of those points in the second half against BC. He didn't hit 1 3-pointer in that game. He only hit 2 free throws in that game. This game, JJ could do nothing. And that is a credit to how he was defended. It was a credit to the plan that they put together, that Pat Kelsey put together for Louisville here. And JJ ends up shooting 1 of 7 in this game, 4 points, in just one of the worst games he's played in a Syracuse uniform. But especially now that he's the go-to guy, and we know he's the guy, and not every team Syracuse is going to face down the road is as good defensively as Louisville, has as good of a defensive player as a Chucky Hepburn. But guys, that's the plan. And when JJ gets shut down, what's plan B? On paper, plan B is to go in the paint, go to Eddie, go to Jair Davis. Donnie Freeman was out for the 3rd straight game tonight. Look, to be fair, he could have helped this team. They needed another scorer. You're not hitting from 3. Syracuse hit 8 3-pointers, but again, a few of those came in garbage time, and they were not keeping pace in this game. I said it to our insiders this morning. I send a text to our Syracuse Sports Insiders pretty much every morning, just kind of like, hey, what's going on today kind of thing. And I said, look, they got to hit threes against Louisville. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They've got to hit threes against this team. I was fortunate to be on with Mark Packer on the ACC network earlier this afternoon, and I said it to him. I'm like, Chris Bell's got to get going when it matters. Whoever it is, got to hit threes. Lucas Taylor had been shooting 50% from three-point range in the last 6 games. Completely shut out tonight. He goes 0 for 6, doesn't score, right? Bell's hitting threes when it doesn't matter. Nobody else could get in there and go tit for tat and match what Louisville was doing, and Syracuse just let it have them. Let them have it, pardon me, because their three-point defense was really poor. They were chasing shooters, and these are guys they know are getting the ball, right? No are taking threes. Chucky's a little bit of a surprise because Rain Smith's their primary three-point shooter, but they had way too many open looks in this game. And then when JJ shut down, look, the fluidity on offense, the creativity on offense, a lot of you have been asking all year, what is this offense? And Red has tried to explain it, that it's a motion offense and he wants the ball to move. And what he says they don't do, right? There's still a lot of ISO ball. There's still a lot of guys standing around on the 3-point line. There's still and there's a couple words I wrote down. There's a couple words that I was sitting there in the dome looking around. Were the students back? Technically, yes, but they sit right behind us where we sit on Media Row, and they're all sitting there looking at their phones the whole time, which, by the way, I don't blame them for, because they didn't really have a game to get into. The crowd never had a chance to really get in this game. But the word I kept writing down, there's two words. One was stagnant. I'm watching a stagnant offense, a stagnant team on defense, and the whole building was just stagnant. Nobody into it. You just see a bunch of green T-shirts on empty chairs. Fans, the ones that did show, didn't even get an opportunity to get in this game. Couldn't even manufacture some enthusiasm because they weren't given anything to react to. The other word that I kept writing down was awkward. It just felt awkward in the building. Like, why am I here? What's happening? It's just, the product certainly did not deliver. So on paper, they can say they got 19,750. In reality, there was barely 10, 11,000 people there. It was, the other word is lifeless. It was lifeless. It was stagnant. It was awkward in the building. And that's not only the product on the court that we saw from Syracuse tonight. It was, and again, this is not a criticism of the crowd. It's just they had nothing to react to, right? So this is the product that you've been getting at home, and you got another home game against Notre Dame on Saturday. Tickets went on sale today for North Carolina and Duke, individual single game tickets. The cheapest ticket to get in the building, at least if you go on Ticketmaster, is $56. The courtside seats start at like $200 in certain sections, and you can go fish around and see what you can get. Certainly there's some StubHub-like websites and some apps. I don't want to give people free advertising here that you can go find much cheaper tickets. But, I mean, the timing of that was pretty interesting, that the two primary games on the slate went on sale today. And look, if you go to the Duke game, you might see Cooper Flagg set another individual scoring record. You might see the prospective number one pick in the NBA draft. North Carolina is a Saturday. Duke is Wednesday, I believe Wednesday, February 5th is the date on that one. Interesting timing on that, given that the home slate in the past couple of weeks, and they had 1-2 in a row. That Georgia Tech game was aesthetically one of the ugliest games I've ever seen, but they did win that game. And remember, a week ago, Red was at the podium talking about some noise that was surrounding the team. I mean, the only noise was everybody groaning, watching the product that they had to see out there tonight. If you want to be blunt here. I think that, and I want to pull up the clips here. What did JJ Starling say in how Louisville was able to shut him down? Let's take a listen to a couple of clips here from.
They were just real aggressive, not even just on me. It was just hard getting to the sets that we wanted to run, and then it just kind of loaded up to me the whole game. Yeah, they were just real aggressive.
One more from JJ Starling.
Yeah, this is the first time I felt like, I personally got punked. So I don't ever want to have this feeling, ever again. So, I'm going to make sure, I watch film and go back in the gym and clean some things up so that this never happens again.
JJ had his hood over his head. He was staring at the floor, pretty despondent, pretty upset with himself. You heard the comments there about how he's going to take this as motivation for the rest of the year. He took this personally. And while he said there's 4 other guys, I don't have the clip here, but I asked him, what's plan B when you don't have it going offensively? He said, look, I've got to rely on 4 other guys on the court to pick me up. And I said, I'm not the whole team. Everybody's got to contribute and do their thing. And he's right. But I think that's one of the more frustrating things about this team when they shut down like this. Remember, they lost by 25 points to Tennessee. There have been some big losses when Syracuse plays what qualifies as a good team, be it ranked team, good team. They just picked up their first 2 Power 5 wins, Georgia Tech and Boston College last week. They, to quote Sidney Dean in the great movie White Men Can't Jump, you either smoke or you get smoked, and you got smoked. When they play good teams, they are that quote. They get smoked. They're not in the game. They do not hang against. And guys, Louisville's good, and all credit to what Kelsey is doing there. Okay, but are they Tennessee-like good? Tennessee got knocked off the top spot in the rankings, but when Syracuse played them, number one team in the country, are they as good as Texas or Texas Tech? Some of these teams, I don't know if Louisville's quite on that level. If they keep playing the way they are, they're gonna crack into the top 25, and we could have that conversation. But beat Syracuse by 24 at home, put the walk-ons in good. I'm not quite sure I'm ready to. All credit to them for doing it, but on paper, are they that good, or did Syracuse make it a little easier on them? And again, Freeman's out. That hurts, but it didn't hurt you in the last two games. Jair Davis was able to average around a double-double, but again, better team, better situation. So you guys, I certainly heard from our insiders on the text line, because when I was on the ACC network today, one thing I said to Mark Packer is that Jair Davis has got to stay away from the three-point line and focus on working in the paint. Jair Davis had 2 3-pointers in this game. But I'm just going to stand by that statement, and here's why. He had 10 points. What did those 3-pointers do for you? You need Davis in the paint scoring, especially making up for the fact that Freeman is not in the paint scoring. So good for Davis that he hit a couple of threes, but that's not what he's out there to do. And I know I said that Syracuse needed to hit threes to win this game. I wouldn't put him at the top of the list of guys. And Louisville, or any team that you play, is going to let you shoot that three, and eventually, as we saw, he fizzles out from the three-point line. So good for Jair that he stepped up and hit a couple of threes, but he had 10 points pretty quickly in this game and then disappeared offensively because you need him in the paint. Red said plan B is to get the ball in the paint to Davis, 10 points. Get the ball in the paint to Eddie Lampkin, 11 points, 10 rebounds. Eddie ends up with a double-double. I'll give him credit for that in 28 minutes. But Syracuse had 14 turnovers in this game, 17 points off turnovers for Louisville. Every time Syracuse turned the ball over, Louisville cashed in on that. Louisville turned the ball over 10 times. Syracuse got 8 points off of that. Louisville won both of these teams are good rebounding teams. Both, I think they were tied for third coming into the league, or coming into this game in the ACC. Louisville with a slight edge there. Points in the paint ended up being 34-28 in favor of the Cardinals, and it felt like a lot more than that based on how Syracuse just struggled to get the ball in the paint, struggled to score, turnovers, dropping the ball. Go through the numbers. Look at the offensive output here. Starling at 4. We mentioned Taylor and Moore don't score. Davis 10, Lampkin 11. Kyle Cuff Jr. I thought maybe would crack the starting lineup in this game, given the struggles that Elijah Moore has had, and why he continues to start is beyond me. Elijah Moore's got to come off the bench. Had a couple of open threes, missed a couple of open threes, got pulled and never returned, right? Which tells you that at this point, they don't value anything else he can do out there on the court. And that's nothing against Elijah. That's just the development of where he's at as a player right now. You miss a couple of threes and then we don't see you the rest of the day. How is that a starting basketball player on this team? And I know they've shuffled the lineup a lot this year, but how can he, look, if he starts and doesn't come back, I guess what's the difference if he's not playing key minutes? But I think he's feeling that pressure as a starter, and I think would be better off a guy that can come off the bench at this point. He's getting closer. He had a couple of good looks. They're just not dropping. He is really struggling out there, and Syracuse needs as many three-point shooters as they can get. And I mentioned Chris Bell at 18, and a couple of those threes came in serious garbage time. So if Bell feels good about a shot and can come in against Notre Dame and contribute a little earlier from the three-point line and get things rolling there so Syracuse can play an outside-in game, great. But Carlos has 7 points. The Maestro had 4 points. Just not enough. And that is a credit to Louisville's defense, don't get me wrong, on that front. And that's where they miss Freeman. So if you have Freeman and he gets his typical double-double, and I'm not asking for 26 from JJ again, but let's say JJ is 18. Maybe we're talking about something different here. But again, guys, the reality is settling in. When you play good teams, when you try to punch up, Syracuse is going to have a hard time landing a punch, let alone knocking a team out. I know that Donna DeTote is writing about this on syracuse.com, so I would encourage you to read this, but just look at the track record. Look at the schedule when Syracuse plays these teams that you would qualify as a punch-up team, right? They're just not competitive in these games. And a lot of that is coaching. A lot of that is disorganization. A lot of that is, like, think of how many teams now are going to take a page out of Louisville's book. And again, not everybody's got a defender like Chucky Hepburn, but teams know if we cut off the head of the snake, if you will, we get JJ out of this game and we harass JJ and make him work for shots and just get him out of the way, who's going to step up and fill that offensive output? Now, again, when Freeman comes back, there's somebody else you got to worry about, right? JJ had been so good in the past 3 games. So I'm going to give JJ the benefit of the doubt that going forward, even when teams find a way to defend him, he's going to find the happy medium between the 4 points he had tonight and the 26 points he had against Boston College, right? You need your scorers to score. And JJ was so frustrated. And he's going to watch film and try and adjust. And I know these coaches will try to adjust to it, but JJ's got to find that happy medium. If you're going to be described by some as one of the best guards in the ACC, and I, by all qualifications, would agree with that, you got to win these one-on-one matchups with good defenders, right? And I think that will pan itself out. I think that will work out. Credit to Louisville, they shut him down. I have a hard time believing, even if you focus your defense on JJ going forward, that most teams will be able to do what Louisville did tonight. I could be proven wrong on that, but the point is that Syracuse doesn't have a plan B when that breaks down. At least not a good one. What Red tried to describe as his plan B tonight, well, we didn't see it. Because the first couple names that came out of his mouth were Jair Davis and Eddie Lampkin, who combined for 21 points. And Louisville, look, they had Hudley in the paint, who was one of the better Hadley, one of the better rebounders in the ACC. He had 13 and 10 tonight. He was a strong defender. Eddie's just not a guy that can kind of post up and take somebody in the paint. He's got to be right by the basket. There's a certain way he has to score. He's kind of got that hook shot that he tries sometimes with varied levels of success. Eddie has no vertical. This is not a guy that's going to kind of back somebody in and dunk over them, even being 6'10", 6'11". That's not his game. He has an inside game. Syracuse needs him out there as much as possible, but it was interesting. I said it right at the beginning. I'm like, man, he's got a real defender on him tonight, and he harassed him and made it hard on him, and it's only going to get harder for Eddie against certain teams upcoming, namely Cooper Flagg and Duke. I just shudder to think what that team is going to do to this Syracuse team if they don't continue to improve, if they don't improve at all. As one of our insiders points out here, we'll get to that comment here shortly. I don't know. I've seen staggered improvement. I've seen certain players improve. I've seen certain guys step up, and Kyle Cuff and the lift he gives this team off the bench. Lucas Taylor did not have a good game tonight. By and large, though, Lucas Taylor has improved and has certainly proven out to have a role, and he's needed on this team. And you can't say here on January 14th they haven't taken some steps forward in 2 months, but it's not marked progress that you should be satisfied with, right? Let's get to our insiders on that note, because you guys had some good stuff tonight. And to become a Syracuse Sports Insider, you can hit that link, joinsubtext.com/Syracuse Sports, or you can text the word orange to 315-847-3895 to have direct text message access to me anytime. Your questions, your comments, your opinions, things you want me to ask players and coaches after games or anytime. Breaking news, you get it first. Inside analysis, just a good old time. Just want to shoot the breeze, talk some Syracuse sports. That's what the text line is there for, my friends. Sean leads us off tonight. We had that great comment from Michael L. earlier, and Sean jumps in to say, look, it's tough, but tough love when these things happen. I could care less about this team. I was wondering what your thoughts are about the idea of the ACC and Big East merging. I heard this rumor today. Yeah, Mike Krzyzewski brought that up. I'll save that for another pod, Sean, because I am intrigued by that idea. I don't think it's going to happen necessarily, but this is what people are thinking about now instead of the games that they're watching. Hey, maybe the ACC and the Big East should merge, right? Why do we drive on highways but park on, what's that expression? Why do we drive? I completely screwed that up. Why do we drive on the parkway but park in the driveway? That's how it goes. These are the things people are pondering now, because the games are not something they're paying full attention to anymore. Jim B says the noise, air quotes, referring to what Autry said last week, is only going to get louder after a performance like that. Even Devendorf and MCW, Michael Carter-Williams, who's now studio analyst on the ACC network, and I have not had the opportunity to see him yet because the games he's been doing I've been covering in person, but I hear he's doing a great job. Couldn't hide their disappointment with this team. Frustrating to say the least. Roger B says this team is poorly coached. There is no rhyme or reason to the offense or defense. The players too often stand around because they're not coached well enough to know what to do. Michael C says the most disappointing thing about this season is a lack of progress. The team still looks as out of sync today as it did at the beginning of the season. And I was just saying that a moment ago, and it's hard to disagree with that. Different Michael. Michael Mick says it just continues to be very difficult to watch these players not in any kind of sync with each other. JJ's trying to do way more than he's capable of. I don't know if it's more than he's capable of, but it is a lot. It's a lot to put on his shoulders, and it's all or nothing with JJ. Look, he's your go-to guy. That's what we discovered when JJ was out. JJ's the engine of this team. There's no doubting that. But it's all or nothing, too. And when teams find ways to completely shut him down, like Louisville did tonight, you're in big trouble because there's no plan B on offense. Well, who's plan B? It should be Chris Bell, but Chris Bell's not consistent enough right now to fit that description. Elijah Moore's not hitting shots. Freeman, I think by default, is plan B. He didn't have him tonight, right? And even in games he's played, can you rely on him enough consistently offensively to be the plan B to JJ? I mean, Donnie can hit threes. I think he could chip in a couple in a game like this. Donnie can work the paint. He can hit that jumper. Does Syracuse win if Donnie Freeman's out there tonight? No, because frankly, Freeman's defense is pretty poor, but maybe you lose by 14 instead of 24. I mean, you make it respectable. This team does miss Donnie Freeman. I know that they won 2 games with Jair Davis in there, but you need all hands on deck to be competitive against good teams. Louisville's a good team, right? So I don't want to put it all on Donnie Freeman, but do they miss Donnie Freeman as much as they missed JJ? I don't think so. But they do miss him against teams like this. Matty W says, I haven't watched a second of these guys in about 2 weeks, and I have no plans on doing so going forward. Just waiting for lacrosse now. I don't know, Matty. Like, as tough as it is, you got to take your medicine. You got to watch the games. You got to know what's going on with the team, right? But I'm not gonna tisk you too much for that because this team, what were the words I brought up earlier? Stagnant, lifeless, awkward. Like, that's just happening too much with this team against better teams. Where does Notre Dame fit in that category, right? BC, Georgia Tech, middle of the pack to lower ACC teams. Those are 50-50 games. You got a shot at them. But the teams that you would qualify as punching up, they're not just losing to. Be one thing if you're competitive and you're losing and you're right there. And Red was saying that after the game. That's a lot of little things adding up. And like he's talking as if they were right there and they didn't get their doors blown off by Lou. For a while, maybe that felt like that Syracuse could kind of crawl their way back into this thing. But once Louisville pulled away and got that 10, 12-point margin, you never got the sense like they being Syracuse, can shoot their way out of this or go on a run. Just never got that sense. Larry F. says, coming to games, which used to be the highlight of my week, has gone from simply unenjoyable to a miserable chore. I'm a guy that never leaves early to consistent protests from the folks I come with, and now I don't even want to come. Even the band is struggling to play the right notes. Oh, now we're picking on the band, too. It's all falling apart in this place. Guys, this is what you're telling me. I know this is like doomsday here, and I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but that's the feeling in the building. If you were in the building tonight, you know what I'm talking about. But at least you got a free T-shirt. Michael B. says, embarrassing second half, Brent. Players and coaches have had enough punishment for tonight. Apparently, we made no adjustments at the half, and the players' effort dissipated since the jinx. From Jack W. says, one of the things that makes this team so difficult to watch is that almost all these guys will be gone next year. Many people might think that's a good thing, but when you can't at least cheer guys' progression, what's the point of watching a bad team? By the way, Jack adds, their starters outscored ours 73-25. That's all you need to know about this one. And that reiterates the fact that this Louisville team did not exist last year. And he makes a great point about you're cheering on players, you hope they progress, but who's even going to be around next year in the portal era where guys come and go at will, right? That's a fair point, and it's a good point. It's hard to make a connection with players when they could just walk out the door after the season. What kind of progress? Because think about like Donnie Freeman and the progress he'll make, and you're thinking, man, even though he plays the same position as Sadiq White, like you'd find a way to make those two work, but are we even going to get to see that? And in Donnie's case, it's because he might get drafted, but who's to say Donnie doesn't pull a Malik Brown, who unfortunately Malik Brown is out with a strained knee for the next few weeks. February 5th. I don't know if he's going to be back for the game at the Dome. That's one of the huge highlights of why you would even want to go to that Duke game, to say Malik Brown come back in the Dome and kind of the WWE aspect of the heel turn, the guy that went to Duke and comes back to the Dome kind of thing. So we wish Malik well, certainly, in his return, and hope he gets back on the court soon. But that's a great point by Jack. You have to be cautious in how you kind of root for development, because they could just go somewhere else and take that development and take it to Duke. In the case of Malik Brown, who's doing a lot of good things for Duke off the bench this year. A couple more here, including from Jeff A., my man, who says, Brent, if they decide to bring Autry back, they've got to find and bring in a hot young offensive innovator who can take over the offense. Worst Syracuse offense I've seen in my 30 years as a fan. The funny thing is I got a few texts from people saying they need to find a defensive coordinator too. So staff changes, if they don't make changes at the top, I think will be called for heavily. And I think we've got we got one more here from my guy Mike V, who says the iso ball offense that I was sure would be gone after Boeheim, and then I was sure would be gone after Judah Mintz. Make sure that the other four guys don't see the ball. We don't start the offense until there's about 10 to 12 seconds left on the shot clock. Yeah, when Carlos got in, and he started the second half of this game, and I gave you the numbers. It's not like Carlos came in and popped anything. 7 points, 3 of 8 shooting. He had 3 assists. I mean, JJ, even in a terrible game, had 4 assists. Assists, and it shows you ball movement. Not always. Some assists are cheap. They're not all created equal. But 17 assists to Syracuse ended up with 14 assists. That's actually more than I thought they ended up with, frankly. But that's kind of where that stat will lie a little bit. That gap was a lot bigger through most of the game. And look, Louisville they knew where to go. Chucky was open. Where the offense was, getting the ball in the paint. Just Louisville didn't have to work very hard, frankly, offensively, because it was just there. So JJ gets shut down, and everybody's kind of looking around like, well, who's going to do what now? It was almost like it kind of was the first chance we saw Syracuse with JJ back on the court. It's one thing when JJ's not available, but when JJ's struggling, and the other guys are and everybody's trying to figure out what to do. Like, that's what we saw tonight. That's what we saw. This is what we saw going back prior to JJ's injury, right? But man, he was so darn good in the few games prior to that, and I think JJ will be good for the most part. And I played you the clips. You should have seen how despondent he was in the locker room. So he's going to be stewing until they play Notre Dame on Saturday. We'll see if it makes a difference. I wouldn't put Notre Dame in the Louisville category, but Syracuse has got to win as many of these 50-50 games as they can going forward. And you just kind of take a deep breath and hold on as tight as you can against the teams that qualify as punch-ups going forward. Great stuff from our Syracuse Sports Insiders, as always, and we would love for you to join our Syracuse Sports Insider community today, not only certainly on basketball, but all the latest news and notes in football, the transfer portal. Spring football will be here before you know it. You got lacrosse starting up soon. So much going on our Syracuse Sports Insider community, and we would love for you guys to be a part of it. So we mentioned Notre Dame. That is a 4 o'clock tip on Saturday. That's when our next post-game show will come following that game. So probably about 8 o'clock, actually, Saturday night. Thankfully, the Bills are playing Sunday night, so we won't be missing that one this weekend, right? Go Bills. So that's our next post-game show, but we should have another pod by then. So that's why you got to subscribe, guys. Spotify, Apple, YouTube. So when new episodes of Syracuse Sports go up, when post-game shows go up, if you can't catch it live, you can listen and watch on demand by following on those channels or wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you prefer. We're on all the services, so make sure you subscribe to get Syracuse Sports on demand when you want. That's going to do it for this edition of Syracuse Basketball Post Game, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner of Syracuse Athletics. The Orange lose to Louisville, 85-61, your final at the JMA Wireless Dome. And we will catch you next time here on Syracuse Basketball Post Game. You guys enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you on the text line.